All right. Welcome to the Becoming Man podcast, a podcast all about the art and science of becoming the people that we want to be. My name is Daniel Rapay, and here on the Becoming Man podcast, we dive into the alchemy of becoming by exploring the diverse range of experiences and viewpoints shared by some of the most incredible performers and thought leaders. Today on the podcast, we have my good friend Tuomas Norjanen, a cinematic composer who has worked with some of the top composing collectives in Hollywood. In our conversation, we discuss his musical upbringing, the changing landscape of music creation through the lens of social media, and the effect that AI could have on art as we move forward. Without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Tuomas Norjanen.
And of course, there's a different amount for Christmas versus Easter.
Is there?
Oh, yeah.
Which one has more, Christmas or Easter?
Well, it depends if your significant other is sponsoring that as a gift for you. So that increases the amount, of course.
Fantastic.
So productivity, right?
I mean, it's not all about productivity. Efficiency is important, but, it's good to have fun, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, I was apprehensive to ask in the car because I didn't want to skip the, I didn't want to lead the question too early on, but how the hell do you learn these weird instruments just at the drop of a hat? That's something I want to know about.
You mean like the Persian instruments in Marjan brought?
Yeah, the ones that she brought. How in the world do you just pick them up and start going oh, I know how to play this now? That seems freakish to somebody who's not in music.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good question. I mean, I am proficient with guitar, bass, and all the string instruments. So essentially, if you think of the instrument, it's just a tuning system of 4 different strings, right, with different tunings, right? And then you understand the scale. Everything is within the 12-note scale. Even in Persian music has some. Okay, we're getting way too technical here. The point is that if you know that there's a tuning system, and you're a musician, you understand, okay, this instrument is still based on the system, right? You know that if you place your fingers on a certain fret, it will produce a noise. And the technique is actually very close. Most of the Persian instruments that we're playing are very close to the Western instruments like guitar and violin. So whether you're playing with a pick or bow, you actually are applying the same kind of a technique. It's not that big of a transition. It seems like it's a completely an alien instrument or culture, but it's actually very close to the Western resemblance.
So you can look at that instrument and see certain frets, and you know that it has sort of an equivalency in a violin or in a guitar.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Most of the world instruments function that way. Because if you think about the origin of those instruments versus violin, so violin is like a sophisticated folk instrument, right? So we've had both instruments for hundreds, even thousands of years in human cultures, and eventually we reached a point where we were not just playing in one key or one system, right? So at that point we had to elevate the instruments to be able to play in different keys, different tunes and different moods, because the music was used in church services way more diversely than previously. Music was just like something you played on the fire or like a religious ritual for a brief moment, but then during the Baroque era in Europe, we had composers like Vivaldi, Bach, and other like Monteverdi that expanded the vocabulary, harmonic vocabulary, and suddenly the instruments had to adapt for that. So that's why the violin making everything elevated within the music, right? So they're essentially folk instruments, but they're just very complex ones, elevated versions of folk instruments.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because music is its own language effectively, right? Yeah. And when you're as musically illiterate as I am, I look at that and just go oh, I think I kind of get what you're talking about. And at the same time, it's just oh, I don't even know the ABCs of this, to speak. Or
I mean, even if you think about what essentially music is, it's completely a symbolic language. Right? Because language itself is symbolic. We have a word for meaning some like an object in the world. But in music, it's even the symbolism is not clear. It's completely interpretatory. So you're interpreting every single nominatory aspect of the language.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, right? Because like you're still communicating very specific things. Like if I play one, like that's my job basically, is that I take these abstract conceptions and I organize them in a way that somehow translates sadness or depression or happiness to you. But you can immediately relate that. But the building blocks that I had are completely abstract, which is insane.
It is insane.
Yeah.
I was reading an article the other day about this like 23-year-old kid who I guess he's playing the piano on TikTok and has grown a following, and now he's in talks to compose like Hollywood films.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I'm curious what you think about something like that, and how these platforms can catapult someone forward.
I think it's fantastic in general that we have social media, so because it gives way more democratic chance for everyone to rise up to the positions of entertainment. Like previously, it was record labels and individuals that were able to employ or hire people that they liked, and they had an enormous power. Now we all have the chance to post stuff on social media, and I honestly think that even in my industry and as a composer, I can say that we haven't done that yet. Like we are totally behind other areas. So I think these young kids that are not working in our industry, they have an advantage because we are too busy usually to post for social media. Our jobs are crazy. The industry is crazy. So I can imagine, like, if you're an executive and you are not necessarily a musician or a composer and you're trying to find someone to do a job for you, right? I can see why they go to social media because everybody else is there. Other industries are there. Every motivational speaker, every other finance guru is on social media. But composers, who is there? Hans Zimmer, basically.
Is he on social media?
Well, yeah, he has a team for sure.
Yep.
So other composers like me, we haven't really done the social media work yet.
Yeah. But you're well on your way to doing it.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so tell me, like, what's the spark that got you into music? Like, what's your Jedi origin story?
Well, it's definitely a story of nepotism. Well,
I believe that.
Yeah, well,
no organic talent or anything like that.
No, of course not. My father is a conductor. My mom is a classical violin player.
All nepotism.
And the funny thing is that they actually encouraged me not to do music, and all of our kids, because they knew the industry and how hard it is to be a professional musician. But when I was 5 years old, I saw my dad conducting an orchestra concert in one of the small towns in Finland. And I was so deeply impressed by that night I told my dad that I want to be a conductor like him. I was 5 years old. So it was inevitable. And then later, my dad started conducting the most famous boys choir in Finland called Cantores Minores. And it's funny because my dad had been elected to be the conductor for the choir, and 2 nights after that, we went to a concert to see them in the Helsinki Cathedral. And I just fell in love with the sound of the choir. And I said, Dad, I really want to join this choir. And my dad was like, holy, like okay, whatever. I think it was inevitable. Like throughout my life, I've considered other career paths, but never seriously. Music was always the obvious solution. I don't know how to explain it, but it was the only avenue I could really express myself and spend hours and hours on.
And anybody who's like seen you pick up an instrument, they couldn't possibly surmise that you have any natural talent. Of course, I'm kidding.
I mean, there's natural talent, but honestly, that is an important factor. Like, obviously, natural talent plays a big factor, but I would say hard work is way more important.
Yeah.
Even when I think about people back in Finland who were, I would say, even more talented than I am. I consider myself quite talented, but there was a couple of people who were way more talented, but they actually stopped doing the hard work around their 20s, and now they're still good. They have pretty good jobs, but they are not aiming any higher in their life. They might be having a little alcoholism problem, like a lot of musicians.
Alcohol, man, it's a crutch.
Exactly. So yeah, I would say hard work counts more. I actually, funnily enough, when I was 14, I just got bit by Metallica and other heavy metal bands, and I started playing the guitar, and I was practicing 8 hours a day.
Wow.
8 hours a day, every single day, whether it was Christmas or anything.
How do you even have the time for that as
That's
a
the funny
kid?
thing, because if you think about it, my school would start at 8 a.m. and it would end at 4, and then I would go to music theory lessons and other instrument lessons, and then I would arrive home and play for a couple hours. And I would always play between like school breaks, or and then I would wake up at 4 a.m. to play every day. I was just so fascinated enamored by the fact of playing guitar in a metal band. You know,
Yeah.
it's just when you have the passion, you don't count the hours. You just do it for the love of it.
I mean, it's got to be incredible to have that level of passion. I mean, uh, I think like even somebody like myself or other people who are have big visions and are driven, they don't always have that level of passion where they can just immerse themselves in something like every hour that they get a chance. So, I mean, like I think that is a gift unto itself, wouldn't you say?
I would say so, and well, you know that I'm religious, but just for clarification for the listeners, that um, like we all get there's good and bad things that happen in life, right? God takes and God gives, and usually the moments when you think about are the worst in your life, they turn into fuel to build a passion from. So I would say that because I was heavily bullied in school when I was young,
Mm.
I channeled all that anxiety, all that depression, all those hard feelings into just practicing my instrument. That was kind of my way of having therapy, right? So yes, I had genuine passion and genuine natural talent, but I was able to channel the hard things in my life, making lemon juice out of the lemons that the life gives you. You know,
Lemon juice or lemonade?
that's a good question.
One is still bitter. The other has had some sugar added to it. I think that's relevant a little
That
bit.
is fair.
So you had that drive in. I mean, like it sounds like it was like the perfect culmination of factors. So like you had talent, you had it around you the whole time. Like I mean, from the time that you were born, effectively in your parents, and it sounds like siblings too, right?
Yes, they're all musicians.
So nobody listened to what your parents said
No,
about.
it's so funny because my dad used to say like, "Be a lawyer, be a doctor. It's gonna be easier and better life. Just do it." And
Yeah.
we're like, "No, no, dad. We're all gonna be musicians." But also, what did they expect? Like, we had a string quartet growing up. Okay, we sang in voices. We all sang in choirs. We all went to music theory lessons and all played multiple instruments. So, like, what were they expecting? Like, hey, we're giving these resources to you, but just be a doctor. Like, that's gonna happen.
I mean, I think that's like in some ways the come up story of anybody who's been, well, not exactly, but like I was gonna say, what we often find is that anybody who's like really good in a given area, they find a way, whether it's by their parents or just like being in the scene, they're surrounded by it, and so that is like, so it's constantly being reinforced and sort of like echoed back in different ways. They're getting feedback.
That's absolutely true.
um
And I think that's a fair point. I've throughout my life I've had a lot of situations where people who come outside of the industry or haven't grew up in a musical family tell me like, hey, you're taking like a lot of things for granted because you grew up around that. Like how you're supposed to work in the industry. A lot of people don't understand how crazy the hours are, and you don't really have free time. And how it can actually grind you down like
mm,
throughout the years. But it's just funny because I saw my dad do that for years. I'm like, oh, that's no normal. That's the normal. You sacrifice your health and your well-being for doing music. Okay, I accept that.
yeah, but he had a passion for it.
Oh, it still does for
Oh
sure.
yeah. So that's like, it's like this incredible culmination of all those things, and you had the hard work to go with it, because too many people who just rest on their talent, like you said, they sort of plateau at a point because they think, oh well, like I'm good, so I don't have to work at it.
Exactly. I'm good enough, and I'll be fine whatever environment I'm in.
Mm.
And that is a lazy thought. I can't understand that kind of thinking.
One would also think you'd get bored if you just settled into that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, we need those challenges. We need to keep pushing ourselves to really not. I mean, like I could see why somebody who has talent and rests on that would actually turn to something like alcohol or any other sort of like numbing agent is because I think it's just a cure for boredom.
That's true. And I think people, when they say that they want to have financial success in whether in any field they do, and I do understand that. Obviously I'm working for that too. Like I wouldn't be doing what I do if I didn't have any financial success, probably, because we have bills to pay. um
Me? No, never.
but there is a factor that once you have a product that sells, we usually repeat making that product, so we pay the bills. But the problem is that when that product becomes a defining factor for your career, and you're afraid to renew yourself or your product because you think that people are not going to like you anymore. I mean, that's essentially what happened. I think would happen with Justin Bieber, for example. And maybe that was his path coming to religion and finding like deeper meaning in his life. But it's clear with the pop stars that when they think that they want the fame, they want the financial success, and then they realize that what they're doing is a product, and they have to keep repeating the same, doing the same product day after year after year. So that obviously starts grinding the mean. Well, what is the meaning of life? Why am I doing this? Oh, I have everything I want. I have money. I have fame. I have everything I could have ever dreamed of, but I'm still not happy. Right. I interestingly, I think that switched for me very recently, maybe a couple of years ago. Obviously I've never chased fame or money for the sake of fame or money, but when I was younger I was more concentrated on that stuff. Nowadays it's more about like, what am I actually satisfied or happy with the music I'm producing or sending to TV or films. It has to speak to me, it has to have a deeper meaning. And I find funnily enough, I actually find usually that it ends up connecting more with people, and it's not just placed on a reality the TV show. It might be replaced in a better environment, better product, better service.
Sort of the irony is that, like, I think hopefully if we're lucky, as we grow older, we stop doing as much for others. We start doing it more for ourselves, right? And the more that we do it for ourselves and come from a genuine place, it's it people, like whatever we produce, people often resonate more with, right?
Or they don't. I actually have an interesting story about that. I don't. Are you familiar with Felix Mendelssohn or Johann Sebastian Bach?
Uh, to some degree.
So everybody probably knows Johann Sebastian Bach, but Felix Mendelssohn was this composer from the 1900s who was born in a very wealthy family, was a patron of arts, but also a composer, very good composer. Johann Sebastian Bach was a genius of his time. At his time, people thought that his music was way too complex for the listeners, way too challenging for the instrumentalists. And actually, after his death, people almost lost most of his works because people really didn't play it as much. And Felix Mendelssohn, at the time, he was literally buying sausages on the streets of in Germany, and then he saw that it was wrapped, like he had this beautiful wrapping that looked like sheet music. And then he looked at the sheet music. By the way, it was wrapped around a sausage, like greasy sausage. And he looked, oh my God, this music is great. Like, why, what is happening? So he went to the hot dog stand asking, so where did you get this music from? And he's like, oh no, it's just this scrap paper I found from the attic. And he started his mission saving Bach's music. And nowadays we consider him the father of the Western music. Everybody plays Bach in the time of their. Everybody admires his music. Everybody loves it. Like it I find inspiration from it every day. And at his time, he wasn't very popular. He was wealthy because he had some kings as patrons and other wealthy people. He was a famous organist because he was technically an amazing improviser, organ player. He taught. He had his own school. He collected a lot of valuable instruments. He was doing financially fine, but he wasn't like mega rich, unlike George Friedrich Handel at his time. I don't know if he is the composer of Hallelujah.
Oh, yeah.
Da, da, da. He was a superstar of his time. He was super wealthy, right? And Bach wasn't. But nowadays we still like Bach is the father of Western music. Handel is not. His music is great, but it's not brilliant.
Yeah, you hear the name Bach far more,
yes,
by comparison.
But imagine we could have lost all of his legacy on fucking sausage papers.
Yeah.
But thanks, Mendelssohn, for saving his music. Yeah,
that's That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
um Circling back for a second to the to what we were talking about of like, for you versus like for the audience, because I think some artists make this transition from the first thing that they're doing that a lot of people like, and then they want to change and expand. The first one that comes to mind is like, Bob Dylan before Electric and Bob Dylan after Electric.
Right.
And, like that. And like, I've experienced this myself with other musicians I've liked, or filmmakers, like, um, I don't know. I don't even know the right question, but like, I'm curious what your thoughts are as it relates to making those decisions, because sometimes there's change that occurs that people like the audience doesn't like, and then but some people also get stuck in the same shtick for too long, and no, like eventually that fades. So like a good example that I'm thinking of is are you familiar with like Wes Anderson
Yes,
films?
of course.
Okay, like it feels like he's like, I mean, all due respect to Wes Anderson, it just feels like he's just hit the same mark so many times,
True.
and it's like it's self-congratulatory in a way, and it's stopped being innovative and interesting.
Yeah, I can see that.
So,
I mean, well, since I'm working in the TV and film industry, our whole whole stick is that we work in trends, right? So when Inception came out, Hans Zimmer released Inception score. Like we had that really low, boom, that horn, the
mm,
big drum, boom. That became like a thing now. Now everybody uses it in tracks, but now we have reached a point where we're looking for unique versions of that because of people have been overusing. Um, Unfortunately, in our industry, it's less about individual innovation and more about what are the trends
mm,
with the music editors. Um, if you think about artists like Bob Dylan and other pop artists, they have the freedom to do whatever they want because their audience is the global audience of music listeners. Whereas the music I write for films and TV is still functional. It has to serve the purpose of telling the story within a TV or film or even games. So I would say, our creative, we have more of a box in which we have to operate in
mm,
versus artists who write just for the fun of it. Or
yeah.
yeah,
Well, you also consider like when Dylan made that transition, his audience was like, he had a growing audience, but this was in what, if I'm not, I hope I'm not like mistaking the wrong decade, like what, 50s, 60s. And so he made this transition and people just rioted about it. And like his audience was not nearly as like worldwide as it is now. I mean, obviously like the whole planet knows his name and he's
yes,
been around for decades upon decades, but that was a seemingly riskier thing to do at the time. Um,
maybe it was backed by his financial success before too.
Oh,
He
but
had the means.
I mean, probably so. And like I guess, I don't know. I'm guessing, I'm curious what puts people over the top when it comes to that decision to say, screw it, I'm going to do the thing that I want to do.
Mm.
Um,
I feel like it's probably the concept of freedom. What do you consider freedom? Because if you have a certain financial security level, then you think that whatever I do, it's not gonna mess with my previous financial success. So let's say that I have a certain amount of residuals or royalties coming every year. If I reach a certain point, then I can be like, fuck it. I just do whatever I want because all my bills are covered. I don't have to worry about money. My kids go to college.
hmm.
I can just write, I don't know, jazz, abstract free jazz for the rest of my life. Obviously, I wouldn't do that, but
Do you not like jazz?
I have a love hate relationship with jazz.
Why?
um, so it's when it comes to when any musical genre becomes academic, it loses certain authenticity in it, right?
Okay. Yeah.
If you go to study classical composition, the music that we study there, I did a music production degree, not even a composition degree, because I already had composed for many occasions before. But the music that is studied is very complex. It's totally something that most of the listeners don't even know about.
Mhm.
It is very complex, and I think impractical too. If you go to the world and you are hired as a composer, not most of the occasions they don't want that kind of music, right? I don't think that's very productive. This might be controversial opinion, but I honestly think the music institutes, when it comes to compositions, are just way behind. They
Mm.
don't understand how the industry works. Same with jazz. Jazz, people consider that there's only one way of doing jazz in most of the music institutes around the world, and it kills the creativity. It forces people in a box,
Mm.
and it teaches people not to take creative risks, which are essential for creating new ways of expressing certain kinds of music, right? So after jazz became institutionalized, it just doesn't that kind of jazz doesn't speak to me.
Yeah, that makes sense because that's also I feel like that goes hand in hand what you were saying about trends because like once somebody innovates in a way because like jazz in its time was innovative.
Yes.
So when somebody has the inception horn and it gets overused and overplayed and
Yes.
then overstudied, then it loses its it just
Novelty, innovation. Yeah.
it's je ne sais quoi, it's whatever, you know, like and don't we do that with everything?
Yeah.
Like honestly, I mean I think there's something to be said about that in stories that are being told on screens now.
Funnily enough, if you ask Hans himself about what is his sound, he will actually look at you funny and say like, I don't know what do you mean. Like I try to innovate my sound with every single movie,
Mm,
and he's right. Like I would be pissed off if I would be only associated with that low horn like sound, because his vocabulary musically is way more broad,
mm,
more diverse. Interstellar sounds completely different from Inception, right? Dark Knight sounds completely different from Interstellar, right?
yeah.
So,
Funny enough, I just think of Pirates of the Caribbean.
well, that makes sense. It's a good track. It's a really good score. Totally.
um, so you're one of the funniest guys I know.
Okay.
I'm curious where your sense of humor comes from. Is that familial?
um, no. Well, I would say that in Scandinavia we prefer darker humor in general, very dark humor. And I would say that the limits for humor are way broader than here in the United States.
Mhm.
Okay. I always get into trouble with that.
So we've seen.
Yep. I get misunderstood, but I don't know. My philosophy is that humor is the best way of dealing with hard stuff in life.
Mm,
There are even some people who are Auschwitz survivors have a really dark sense of humor because that's the way they were able to deal with that. Also, if you ever been to Russia, Russians are known for their dark sense of humor
mm,
because they have been living within a really dark, oppressive society for hundreds and hundreds of years,
mm.
and humor has been the best way of dealing with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but how did you develop yours?
I don't think I always just had a fucked up sense of humor.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah. I wasn't sure if it was like some like inflection point that like I don't know, kids at school or like I mean, you said you were bullied, so like that could have
I mean,
inspired
yeah,
it
I
or
could see that, me dealing with that tragedy in that sense. Yeah, I
yeah.
can see that.
Yeah. I aspire to your level of humor.
Don't. You're gonna get into trouble with that.
It could be a fun thing.
Yeah, let's get this podcast canceled next time.
Well, trust me, there's things I don't cover for that reason. um, and one of the things I've noticed in the out of your music that I've listened to is that it's at least what I've heard is very adventurous. Like everything feels like like I'm floating over the mountains and the streams in New Zealand in like a Lord of the Rings movie or something. Um, and so like I guess I'm curious of like what inspires the music or inspires or informs the music that you create and how did you come by your unique palette, you know?
I think we are all shaped by our individual experiences in life. So I played so many different instruments and different genres that I think that might be the reason why it's so diverse, because I bring influences from all those experiences, like playing jazz, playing classical music, playing heavy metal, playing rock, singing pop, even playing in an orchestra. There's just so many different things, even electronic music. Um, So I think it's just the diversity of the palette that creates that unique sound. I'm not honestly trying to innovate. Like
Mm.
when I sit down at my desk at work or home, I start improvising with the piano or with the synth or even with my violin. And that becomes the raw gem that I start polishing with other
Mm.
aspects. And the way I start polishing the gem is usually informed by like feeling or a sense or an image that I have in my head. So for example, if I'm thinking like a nature documentary or fantasy inspired track, I'm actually imagining like actually like a stream or like beautiful landscape, sometimes a story. But I think the story develops, for me at least, by itself.
Mm.
I just have to have that starting point, how I feel, and then I let my emotions guide how the story develops.
Mm.
It's funny because like there's a lot of people who say that your productivity and your tracks are going to be better if you outline the story beforehand, and I agree to that some point. But for me at least, when I let myself be a little bit more adventurous and let be guided by my emotions, I actually make better stories, better musical stories.
Yeah. That was distracting.
Yeah, a little bit distracting for sure.
No, that I mean, I feel like that's very relatable. I think like as you talk about that, I think of it in terms of writing, like myself, like on the script page, and people always ask, well, like, what inspires this story like that you wrote, and I'm like, it's almost never like a story.
Yeah.
It's almost just the idea of a place, a setting,
Yes.
and I'm hearing. I feel like I'm hearing. I bring it up because I feel like I'm hearing that in what you're saying. Is like
Absolutely.
I imagine a setting and I kind of go, what would happen in this place?
Yes. Exactly. How? What kind of a story from my life could have happened in that place?
Yeah. What adventures could unfold in this place? Like, and just what are the people like that live here? Like tavern in the backwoods or something, that kind of thing. Like, just like it plays with your curiosity.
That is true, and sometimes obviously like if you're struggling, like that's the funny thing. I don't think I've ever had a blank page syndrome in my life. It sounds very cocky to say that, but for me, it's more about it's the habit. Like from a very young age, I've just sat down with the piano and improvise. So
Mm.
there's always something to work on. It's for me at least. I feel like it's more a confidence problem if you can't get a track done. It's like you don't trust that your instinct is good enough to choose something to work on. Honestly, you can you can polish a turd enough almost to make it sound like a diamond. I wouldn't consider my ideas turd, but I'm making a metaphor. Like you just have to trust that whatever you put there on the paper or on your DAW, digital audio workshop, can be polished into something great if you just take the time and are courageous enough to let yourself play with the idea.
Yeah. So you've never experienced the blank page problem.
No, no, it's I've besides my improvisation skills, I also have a palette of sounds that inspire me.
Hmm.
So for listeners who don't know what a composer does, we have a bunch of virtual instruments and sound packs that we use um, for like synths, brass, violins, string orchestra, woodwind orchestra, all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of synths and vocal packs that sound very right for a certain setting. For example, fantasy setting. There's a couple of vocal libraries that I use to just put myself in a certain place, and then I improvise with the piano over it, and that streamlines the process a little bit.
Hmm. That's helpful to have like just those things to sort of just play with a little and get you in.
Absolutely. The other option is that if you're just too tired and you can like find that you're very fatigued and it doesn't make sense to sit down on a computer,
Hmm.
then I usually go for a walk. That usually refreshes my mind. But if I've already done that, funnily enough, it's just feeding your mind with right stuff. So
Hmm.
we all hopefully have some kind of free time, or we dedicate some time for resting. And one of the avenues for me is video games,
Hmm.
especially fantasy video games.
Yeah.
So if you're already engaged with that, it's really hard, by the way, for me to listen to music on my free time because I'm working on it all day, all night long, right? From morning to evening. So when I'm playing video games, what I'm doing is that I'm playing really good soundtracks in the background.
Hmm.
So I'm not even paying attention, but I'm actually feeding my ears and my mind with something good that I know that my subconscious mind will process eventually, and it will come out the next time I'm composing.
Yeah. That's a cool way of going about it.
Yeah, because you have we all have only 24 hours, right? So
No, some of us had 36.
so if you have those 24 hours, you gotta find how you're maximize. Well, not maximize them, but make sure that you are fed not only physically but also spiritually.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I know usually you're composing for specific projects or things that are in demand for you to do in particular, but if given to the extent that you have some level of creative freedom, or if you ever compose just for your own pleasure,
Hmm.
um, is there a specific experience that you would like to create for those that hear your music?
Huh, that's a good question. Honestly, Elden Ring, I don't know if you know the video game, that would have been my dream project.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's artistically like perfect. How they think about the philosophy of exploring the vast world, everything about the like graphically and everything. Music is pretty good too, but like if I think about that, would have been my dream project to score.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's are you trying to ask like what is the difference between working with different people, different projects, with the creativity and creative
Well,
freedom?
I'll just put it back to you again. I said, like, is there a specific experience that you want to create for people who hear your music?
Oh my god, yeah, that makes sense. Um, Depends on the track and the context. So I would say all the music has its place, right?
Sure.
So a lot of my music happens to be very big and very cinematic.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to bring them to feel a little bit more on the edge, more have a little bit more anxiety about what's happening on the screen, right?
Chest
Get
out.
get them elevated, right?
Yeah.
But then there are situations where I want it to be feel very relaxed and feel like they're immersed in the world they're looking at. Sometimes I want them to feel proud, strong, powerful,
Hmm.
sometimes scared. It just depends on what the context is, what the album is for. That's usually when we are briefed or I'm briefed by the director. They usually ask me, "Hey, I want this scene to make me feel this way," or
Hmm.
like this movie is about this. Can you just score the whole movie in this way? And then obviously I'm looking at the screen and thinking what I'm feeling, and then I'm trying to pass that feeling to the listeners.
Yeah. I mean, clearly I mean, it goes without saying you're a professional, which means there's always like demand for specific things.
True.
So maybe you don't have a lot of free time to like just want to out of left field want to compose something that just like comes up.
That's actually an interesting question because yeah, I do get those ideas every now and then.
Hmm.
There are moments when I hear something in my head that is a little bit out there. It's more a concert music oriented, more modern classical, and then I do write it down a lot of the times. But I rarely come back to those ideas. It's just because I have too many deadlines.
Too busy. You're too demand.
Yes, exactly.
Too in demand. Yeah. And I think we kind of touched on this one a little bit, but in a specific way, do you find that life circumstances play a role in your creativity?
Absolutely, absolutely. Your partner plays a big role. Just being with the right person or a good person is essential for your creativity
Hmm.
because um, it's a synergistic relationship. If you have peace, you have more creativity.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can obviously like you can create wonderful works of art when you're anxious and not at peace. We have seen that. I mean, the whole metal music in that sense is that.
Hmm.
But I think that eventually, like if you want to really truly express yourself, you have to find peace.
Couldn't have said that better. It's so true, though. I mean, like, do you feel like peace has become more of a priority as you've gotten older and just more
Absolutely.
experience with life?
Yes, it is just choosing your battles. What is worth fighting for,
Hmm.
and who am I writing this for? Who am I trying to please, and why?
Hmm.
If you're just trying to please someone for fame or money, it can be a short-term gain, but in the long term, it's just gonna eat you alive and make you hollow.
Mm. That's so true.
Yeah.
I don't think I realized how important peace was, uh, like just in front of mind. Like I think we have some sense of like, oh, we don't like this anxiety or this fear or whatever.
Yes.
But like I think at some point you get to this threshold of you think, oh gosh, peace is what I'm after.
Yeah, I think that's the peace is the glimpse of hope for us to understand what we're striving for, right? But it also gives perspective on what anxiety and depression are, right?
Mm,
Okay, take this with a grain of salt because I'm not a psychiatrist, right? But at
could have
least,
fooled me.
but at least for me, the very liberating thought for me was when I understood that anxiety is just I called it starting energy, right? Because if you think evolutionary, anxiety emerges when you have a perceived threat. And back in the day, we could run from our threats. It's a lion or a bear, you just run away from it. So
Mm,
nowadays, we still perceive threats. They're just abstract. So we can't run away. So what happens is you get a lot of energy, but you can't express it. And people get anxious. And what they do is they start overthinking because it's an abstract thing. They think they can solve it, but they don't understand it's just a bodily feeling. So if they went for a run or to the gym or for a walk, then it usually dissipates. I mean, exercise is the best antidepressant that there is, right? For a reason.
oh, for sure.
But then depression. Um, if you think about when did we have depression, was that when a tribe or a person was lacking resources, like there was a winter coming and you didn't have enough food, you would get like you're realizing, oh shit, like we fucked up, like we were gonna run out of food and we're gonna die.
Mm,
So it's more dire in that sense. Anxiety is immediate,
mm,
but depression is more about the direction you have chosen is not aligning with your goals. So if your goal was to survive over the winter and your actions didn't align and your results of your actions didn't align, you feel depressed. Right.
mm,
So nowadays, if you're experiencing depression, it is because your actions or your direction of life is not um, it's not aligned with your goals. So either you have to change the direction of your life or change the goals, and usually that's when the depression goes away.
yeah, I mean, that as I've experienced that in my own life, that can almost sometimes take a period of walking through the wilderness
Yes.
to figure out what that next thing is.
Yep. And also realizing like why are you having the goals you have? Because if your goals are unrealistic or they are very superficial or materialistic, then you will feel eventually depressed
Hmm.
because you are not getting that long-term happiness from the choices you make in life, right?
Yeah. It's interesting to think that you mentioned anxiety as that starter energy because oftentimes the release valve on anxiety is to take some kind of action,
Action.
whatever that
Absolutely.
may be, and or maybe it's multiple kinds of action, or I mean, but taking some action usually does relieve some of that.
Yep, I think that's why we have a lot of compulsive behaviors like buying stuff we don't need because that's taking action, taking the anxiety off, right?
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I've no, none of us do that.
No,
Not
none
at all.
of us. What is the meaning of life?
Oh, that's a
42.
yeah, 42. That is a question that has eluded the answer of man for millennia. So let's hand it off to the women, I guess.
Yeah.
Good luck. May the force be with you.
Exactly.
Um, so speaking of like going through stuff, um, in the last few years, you went through some heartbreak, some challenges, if
Yeah,
you will.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, how do you feel like that has informed the man that you are now?
Hmm. My dad and my grandfather have all been very stern, hard men in a good way. They're never abusive or anything like that. They just always they demanded a lot from me, both my grandfather and dad. And I remember when being very young, I was like, oh, why are you like always so demanding, or why are you expecting me to be so grown up, right? But the older I get, the way more I appreciate it, way more than having the other way. Like my dad knew that in order for me to survive in this world, I would have to be smart and be mature. And I feel like those seeds that my father helped me sow kind of are finally, I think that especially within the past 2 or 3 years, I've had to face some really hard stuff and kind of realize that what is true manhood, like how you can carry a burden, how you can carry a cross.
Mm.
And it's I think our culture emphasizes too much like emotional expression. Like obviously you have to talk about your emotions, don't just like bury it down. But part of emotional intelligence is, at what I've understood, is to not only recognize your emotions, but also understanding when to react to them, right?
Mm.
Understanding why we have them. When you have intense anxiety, intense depression, it is almost like an overwhelming feeling, right? Because but once you're able to break out that loop and not react to it, you kind of have power over it.
Mm.
And I think that's, especially as men. I'm not saying that women can't do this. I'm just saying, at least for me as a man, is understanding how to rise above your emotional state in any moment. My dad was pretty good at it, and my grandfather too. And I'm hoping to do even better.
I think you're well on your way. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I don't know if you know about Scandinavian culture or Finnish culture, but we had a war with Russia in two wars actually, 1939 and 1941. Fun times. My great grandfather fought in both of those wars, and the the stoic and silent culture we have with men in Finland is obviously because of that. Like men had to really deal with some really hard stuff, sometimes more successfully than less successfully. But I think that men in my family have been dealing it pretty well,
mm.
especially starting from my grandfather. So I think that was a great example. And then I'm trying to pick after them and do better.
No, I mean, like from knowing you, I feel like you have a balance of both those, and I think that's the goal, isn't it? To be able to carry yourself in a stoic manner when necessary, which I think for men is a lot of the time. I
True.
think it's not recognized popularly in female like understanding of emotions, that like what is required of us to for them to actually like us in the first place is that like we have to carry ourselves with some level of stoicism, some level of like, I am the rock
Yes.
that you will be able to, rest on.
Yes.
And at the same time, um, if we have developed a relationship, then I can share with you in doses.
Yeah, I feel like at least I myself fall more in the traditional sense of how relationships function. I like having roles, like clear roles. To be fair, I have to say that both my mom and dad were very stoic in a good way.
Hmm.
My mom was a little bit more emotionally available, but if I remember the hardest moments when I truly needed emotional support, my dad was there. So it wasn't like it was divided. Like my mom did 100% of that, and my dad, they both were stoic. My mom a little bit more emotional, but both were emotionally available.
Hmm.
So I don't. I think people have too black and white view on relationships too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one that we've been squaring off with in our culture in the last,
Yeah,
couple
I
decades.
think our culture is struggling with, um, the expression "throwing the baby out with the bathwater," right?
That's a very appropriate expression.
Yes, I feel like we're just getting rid of some very good things that have functioned in the past. We have a beautiful Western culture, Western society, with great values that have uplifted millions out of poverty, educated millions, made the world a better place. And obviously, there's some mishaps, and United States and all other countries have done all kinds of things that we can look after and say, oh, that might have been a mistake. But because those things happened doesn't negate all the good things that happened. Like Britain being one first country to ever abolish slavery, for example.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, like that's very I mean, we're speaking to like the revisionist history of the moment of like looking through these lenses of here's where we're at now, and this is why these things in the past are evil. Which I mean, we can look at those things and go objectively, like, yes, this is wrong.
Absolutely.
But in the context of the time, whatever it wasn't as it wasn't as front of mind. There wasn't this collective awareness of its own wrongness.
Absolutely.
It like that had to grow, and that understanding had to develop. But I mean, like, speaking of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, it's like, for example, like what we're dealing with now is like we're throwing out instead of just throwing out the toxic, we're throwing out the masculinity as well.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with masculinity
No,
of
not at all.
itself. So
We need masculinity.
absolutely.
And men also need to be empowered, not only just scapegoated for things that go wrong in our society.
Yeah, I mean, we serve value in our society.
Yes.
And yeah. um I guess the question I'm looking to ask is, how does fun play into your life? I mean, you play video games,
Yes,
you play instruments, but no one ever says I work an instrument, right?
that is true. I play an instrument. That's a fair point.
And so like as I personally seek to reclaim fun in my own life and go like, what even is that anymore? I'm curious how other people, and in this case, like how you relate to having fun and playing.
Honestly, I feel like I couldn't do composing if it wasn't fun. Obviously, there are moments when the brief is, well, less than ideal, to say like politically correct. But there are moments when somebody is asking for music that I'm not very fond of, or I think it's less than ideal. I'm sparing a lot of words here. But even on those moments, I'm still trying to have fun. So music for me is fundamentally my ultimate way of expressing myself, my emotions, who I am as a person. So even if I'm, let's say that there's a track that I'm like, the direction is not my favorite, but I get to record live strings.
Mm.
That's the moment when I'm like, I'm playing my violin. I love playing violin. Oh, it's so wonderful. Oh, I can do this thing. I can actually play with my bow a little bit more and have this different kind of a sound. Or I can move my finger, have a different kind of vibrato with a different speed. And that already gives a satisfaction. And I feel like I'm contributing something new to it. And it's taking me out of that context of like, I don't like this track. So I'm trying to reframe it. Well, you're familiar with reframing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely.
So I think fun can emerge from reframing unpleasant situation.
That's a good way of looking at it. Kind of reframing the question around it. How do you feel that social media has played a role in that we create art?
Interesting question. The institutions haven't changed a lot yet. I think more and more people have access for creating art, right? At least in a YouTube and other social media space, the highest working professionals are not there yet because we're usually too busy, right? Slowly we're getting there. It's just because there's so many resources. There's so many people who love music and who would like to play an instrument, right? And now they have access to millions of people online who can teach you that. So resources are abundant for everyone, and that is completely new.
Is that a good thing?
Oh, I think it's a great thing if professionals take the opportunity to jump in there. But making art, I don't think it has really changed how we make art, because fundamentally, who is in charge of what art is being seen, right, online? I mean, obviously YouTube and other platforms, but if you think of like, well, what is the highest form of film scoring or game scoring? It's still those studios and executives who are putting it out, right? Same with traditional art institutes; they decide what is good, right? So I don't think it has changed the way we do art much. But if you think of like entertainment, if we think of purely entertainment, like TikTok, how people are reacting to each other's performances, that can be a new way of creating art. It's more collaborative, more interactive. You know, like somebody singing a funny song and somebody makes a background for it, or like continuation for it. Um, I think that's an interesting question. I think within the next 50 years, obviously, it's gonna shape our culture even more. It's social media is still quite a new thing if you think about it. We're still in the baby steps with it.
Yeah.
How it's gonna affect our culture.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I think, in 100 years, like whoever is around then will look back and look at what we were doing now and look at us like we're in the Stone Age of something.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when AI takes over and helps us creating content, what are we gonna be posting?
Oh my gosh. I read a crazy article about AI too, which tell you about in a second.
Okay.
But yeah, like for me to soapbox for a second on my whole thoughts on the social media and how it plays a role in art, and I'm curious, like your
Yeah, yeah.
response to it is that like I think a I mean this predates social media a little bit, but especially with the advent of social media, everybody always being tuned into a screen. Um, affects like what other art comes out in the world, so
Mm,
like films, TV, music. And the thing is like it, for all of human history, art has been informed by life experiences,
true.
but now life is so being dominantly lived in a virtual context, and so I think it's dramatically affecting what I would call the quality of art that is coming out now.
Do you mean in a more bad way? It's degrading art, or
I'm apprehensive to say, but yeah, I mean,
yes,
like, I feel like it's the concept of a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox. Like nobody's actually like there's fewer people that are living life, like getting bruises and scars and
yes,
breakups and these
yes.
experiences that inform what art like
I
is.
see what you mean. Yes, I can agree with that, especially with like modern scripts in Hollywood. I am not a big fan of the stories they tell. It's just it sounds like you just said, like they're lacking life experiences, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. It's not telling. They're not telling stories of real struggle what people have gone through, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. I mean, I think people are living on screens and then everything that they make. I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but like I feel like a lot of what people make is like, oh, like all of my inspiration is inspired by something that somebody else has already made, as
Mhm.
opposed to like I went out and did something and now like here's a pure expression.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, because if you think about the amount of information we digest every day, there's we're already kind of reaching the point where it's so saturated that the only way of us creating new content is intertextual, like you said, referencing to already created pieces of art or content.
That's a good phrase, intertextual.
Yeah, I learned in high school in Finland.
What are we teaching in the US these days? um I'll step back off the soapbox. So what are your thoughts on the way that AI is playing a role?
I am actually excited for it. I think it can supercharge your creativity once it reaches its full potential. Well, I'm already using AI to automate some of the tasks I do, which I find it fantastic. It saves so much time. What I'm worried about is the deregulation of AI, because we have to make sure that if the AI is being trained on that, people whose the art that is being trained on, the people who own the art, the IP, should get compensated for it.
Mm,
That if that doesn't happen, then I don't think it's fair. It's people can make the argument, oh, what's the difference between, like, you're a composer, you absorb influences all your life and then you create this piece of art. Well, the difference is I'm a living human being and AI is not, right?
mm.
So like I'm
Dangerous words these days.
because I'm a capitalist. Like I believe in the capitalistic system, and
Yeah.
we have innovation is important, but I think there's a fundamental difference between human and the product.
Mm,
Like whatever your political philosophy, it's very different being a human and an AI. I hope so. At least other people believe that too. So the art that is created by a human being is fundamentally more valuable, not necessarily measured by money,
mm.
but by the spirit. At least that's what I believe in. I'm a Christian, so God created us to create beautiful things on earth, and we have to value that. If it's a system that is able to accelerate that process, fantastic. Give me those AI tools. They will streamline my process, maybe make me more productive, make more money, live a more satisfying life. Great. But if it's trying to replace us and our creative endeavors, I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I use some of the GPTs just for like writing things, but um the stuff that comes out, like I still feel the need to uh I mean, I'm bouncing it back and forth between like my own writing and what it comes up with, because like it just doesn't feel real. And what I was going to say about the article I read just today is like, I guess some MIT scientists were doing these brain scans and monitoring different people, like chat gpt users that had been presumably students that had been using it for like, a few like years now,
Yeah,
to create different things, articles or papers or whatever. And they've already been able to discern that it dramatically impairs, the overuse of it dramatically impairs the students' cognitive abilities. And also, uh, teachers that receive these papers are reporting that like in a contextual sense, it's like perfect wording, perfect grammar, but it feels soulless. It doesn't feel human.
absolutely. Even in Finnish schools, there has been a trend with like illiteracy rising. It's the same everywhere in the Western world, and young people not recognizing pretty like their vocabulary is very limited,
Hmm.
and I think that is worrying. Absolutely, and you don't develop critical thinking skills if you're heavily only using AI, relying on AI. You're absolutely right about that. Hmm.
Yeah, would you not be concerned that like, up and coming musicians even would be over reliant on AI as opposed to their own skills?
Yeah, and I'm worried about the people who are just graduating from schools because the AI is taking a lot of automating a lot of tasks that we would use assistants for example. So someone in my position or someone who has more experience, we're going to be in great position. We can because we can automate a lot of tasks, save money, invest into some other areas of our businesses. But people who just are graduating with the student debt from a music school, like I'm not. I hope that they do well, and I think they can. Well, they have the now they have the opportunity of social media of making money. So
Hmm.
I'm hopeful for them, but in the same time feeling a little bit gloomy.
Are you concerned that, like, kind of to your point, like, not only, I mean, like, they might be able to have this opportunity with social media, but in the loss of this, like, apprenticeship space, there, like, it's not just that the job will be lost, but there is this sort of like like things that you can't put down on paper, institutional memory that is like passed from somebody who's a master at what they do on to the next generation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially when you're training someone to write in your style. Um, that's a interesting question because if you think about traditionally, you get someone to help you with some tasks, right? And then they watch how you work and they see your work and then they copy it and learn to be better. But if you take that aspect of not helping with tasks, what are these people going to do? Are they just going to come and hang out in your studio for free,
Mm.
right? That because that's going to take some time. So it's like, oh, I'm James from I don't know Hudson, and I wanted to come and see how you work. Okay, like what are you going to do? Oh, you hang out in my studio for 3 months while I compose. I guess that could work.
Yeah. Well, and it goes. I think people can chalk it up to like, oh, well, you got to pay your dues. Which I mean, I think there's truth in that. Like, there's something about like working on the lower levels and just really developing an appreciation.
Yeah,
But there are things that you're going to learn through that experience that you wouldn't learn if you jumped right from like, okay, I just graduated from like Berkeley and now I'm just using my computer and these AI tools to create stuff for social media or whatever.
to be fair, I don't. That's an interesting thing because like I had the situation where I when I graduated from Berkeley, um, there was a pandemic right after,
Mm.
so I couldn't start with bleeding fingers back in the day. Um, so what happened is that I actually had to freelance for them, and I had to freelance with like all over the industry. So I actually never had the assistantship experience. So I did never had that situation where I was helping someone with
Did
the
you not?
task.
For some reason, I thought you
No,
had.
I've never assisted anyone.
Okay.
Well, I actually, to be fair, I was actually being mentored by Michael Levine, who worked with Hans on the Simpsons movie.
And that would qualify.
Well, that would qualify, but it was only 3 months. It's not a long time, you know.
Sure.
And then I got a straight into composer position at Bleeding Fingers. So I kind of jumped the line in that sense. I can see some areas I could have improved or gotten some information from older composers, but I'm actually kind of happy that I did it on my own way, developing my own voice.
So you got a little bit of it, but at the same, it's like you're like at the on one level, it's like I'm glad I did it on my own, but at the
Honestly.
same time, I think people should definitely go this route.
Well, that's what I'm thinking about the young kids with the AI. They might actually have better time because when they jump straight to creativity, they might be developing their own voice earlier. So it might be a harder route financially, but it might result in more unique voices and more creative voices in the field, which I think we definitely need that.
Fingers crossed. I mean, we do need a, don't you think we could use a artistic renaissance?
I think it's already happening.
Do you think so?
Yes.
Where do you see that?
Well, because of the social media, we have so much visibility over art. Everybody can post it to be shown in the world. In the past, we had institutions and patrons choosing who to support. So I'm sure there were a lot of more musical geniuses in the past that we just don't know about as much.
It wasn't as democratized.
Exactly. And everybody has an access to a computer nowadays. They can learn how to make music on a digital audio workshop anywhere in the world. Whereas back in Baroque era, it was here in the West, we were developing the instruments, the means, the styles to lead the movement of the new music.
Yeah. So we touched on it for a second already, but what is a dream project that you'd love to tackle?
Man, I love video games. It's just there's so much creativity there with music. I think there's more creative freedom within video game realm than film realm. I do love scoring both films and games. Don't get me wrong, but video games are more experimental with sounds.
Yeah, and I mean it's such a growing industry, right? I think it's far outpaced film at this point, like from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, the interesting part for creators is that, like composers, that we don't get any royalties from them, right? Because it's just in the game; it's not broadcasted on TV. So I think more people would score more video games if we had that kind of a residual system set up for it. And I think eventually maybe we get some money from Twitch or other streaming platforms.
So that would probably be determined by like how many people purchase the game, that kind of thing, like they would have done with like DVDs and of films back in the day.
I think Sony does give some money back from those games, but like the video games I've scored are to China, for example, and they're not. Well, actually, one of them is available in Apple Store, but my I don't get any residuals on the music I wrote. It's like a buyout deal. So,
well, as long as you get it from somewhere.
Yes, exactly.
All right, for young composers who might be listening to this, who dream of breaking into the Hollywood scene, what's one piece of advice that you wish you'd heard when you were starting out?
That is a really good question. Learn your craft. When even in Berkeley and after Berkeley, I spent a considerable time just learning how to produce Hans Zimmer style soundtracks. They are really, really well produced. So imagine this. I had a laptop, MacBook Pro from 2018 with like 16 gigabytes of RAM. Okay device, but I didn't have a proper speaker stand. I have Yamaha HS5s standing on two bookshelves, like a pile of books. And here in LA, it gets super hot in the summer. So I had to put ice packs under my laptop so it wouldn't overheat. Yes, that was my reality for the first 2 years here in LA. And I still decided, like, it was a crappy room. It wasn't acoustically treated, but I was determined to learn the style. So I just worked hard. If you want to make this a profession, you actually want to make money, you have to be willing to work harder than anyone else. It's just hard to break in this industry. So work hard, learn your craft, learn how to use the tools. Like recording with a real orchestra is very, very rare nowadays. So just learn how to program your orchestra sounding real, and also learn a real instrument. Like people think that, oh, because I didn't learn an instrument, like I didn't play violin when I was 9, I can't learn it. Yes, you can, if you just have the determination and time.
Hmm.
You choose to have the time. I actually, funnily enough, I nowadays play the cello, but I never learned it when I was a kid.
Hmm.
I started playing cello like actually like determined to learn the cello 2 years ago.
What?
Yep.
Seriously?
Yep. And now I'm recording for every single track I do, and I solo cello and stuff.
Oh my gosh, I thought you'd been playing the cello since you were like 5 years old or
No, no,
something.
no. I've only played violin and viola since I've been young.
Oh well, only.
So yeah, 2 years ago I decided I don't want to hire anyone else. I just want to do my own, and then I just learned it.
I remember you playing a couple weeks ago. I was impressed.
Thanks.
Um,
There's actually even in my music out there, like there's multiple tracks where I have cello solos and stuff.
Crushing it. When are we getting an album?
I mean, I don't have any solo music out, but yeah, my music is everywhere on TV, films, games.
Yeah, but we need like an orchestral piece from you, or a symphony. You know, like
I see,
a full vinyl album.
I see. Maybe someday. Maybe someday.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to the last couple questions, is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you would be like jazzed to? Well, forgive me for saying jazz, but piccolo players. Is there anything that you would be excited to talk about that I have been foolish enough not to bring up yet?
I can't think of anything.
Quicker questions. If you could score a movie about your own life, what genre would it be, and what would be the vibe of the soundtrack?
It would be Dark Souls or Elden Ring, honestly. That like that video game style. Like it would be just like working hard, overcoming challenges, failing, and then learning from the failing, and just keep pushing harder. That would be the genre. It would be maybe fantasy elements, like fantasy movie with the horror elements.
Fantasy is the through line for you.
Yes.
Your own Lord of the Rings or Elden Ring or
Yes.
Dark Souls, is it?
I would say, yeah. Dark Souls, Elden Ring, that kind of a world. Yes.
I gotta play it more to be familiar with what you're talking about, but for hopefully the would-be composers listening, they're also as ingrained in Elden Ring as you are. If there's one attribute you would like to develop within yourself, one act of becoming that you have not yet acquired, what would that be?
Patience. Absolutely. Patience, and I can be sometimes impulsive because I have so much control over myself in life. Like I'm control when it comes to my work and my craft, that in other areas of my life I can act impulsive or impatient. So I wish I could develop that a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe with purchasing video game systems.
Yep, absolutely. I have too many of those, but they're so nice when you can when you're limited on time and you can just grab a Steam Deck and just play for 10 minutes and then get back to work. It's so relaxing.
You got those AR goggles on,
dude. They're so nice. OLED screen, AR goggles. Oh my god!
Next thing you know, everybody's gonna be walking around with those on.
Yeah, I know, right?
Not the Apple ones, but
no, they're expensive, but the ones I have, the Vitro XR ones, are so nice because like my neck. We're not sponsored by them, but just clarification. But like the problem with if you're watching a movie or playing a video game is that your neck gets strained on any position you are eventually. So when I have those AR glasses, I can just like lay down on the sofa if I'm taking a 10-minute break and watch a video or play a game for 10 minutes and then get back to work. And my neck actually relaxes during that time. It's very lovely.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, but like cello playing is can be very straining for your physique.
Well, with all the cello playing I've done.
But it is honestly like if you record cello, like sometimes I record it like for 4 hours straight if I'm doing multiple projects. I'm recording a lot of cello. Then next day I might have my shoulders and my neck can be very tense. Yeah. So I need those little moments of relaxation.
Have you ever tried one of the percussor guns?
What is that?
It's like a massage gun.
No, never tried those. I just usually stretch or go for walks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, if it gets the job done,
exactly.
Valuable question. How do you say your last name?
Norjanen.
Okay.
Don't worry about. I've heard the worst, like whatever people say. Like it's, you can call me Norjanen, but the proper way of saying it's Norjanen.
Norjanen.
Nice. That's actually good.
Oh,
Very good. Wow. Damn. Did you chat GPT that or Google that? 'Cause that was
No,
really
no.
good. Oh,
I
okay.
was like practicing earlier, and I was like, I'm just not even gonna try. I'm just gonna ask him
That was good.
during the course of it.
I'm not. That was actually really good.
Oh, well, good to know I can do something right.
There's only. I'm actually the only person in the world with my name, so identity theft is super hard on me. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, so nobody else is going to be stalking the other Tuomas. They're gonna know that they have the right one.
Yes, exactly.
It's good. And lastly, where can people find you? Social media, website, like what's a good place to find you, your stuff, connect with you? If
Currently, you can find my profile in the Bleeding Fingers Music talent section. So if you go to bleedingfingersmusic.com. What was that?
that was your phone, I think.
Interesting. Anyway, so if you go to bleedingfingersmusic.com, you can find my profile there. There's a list of credits and what I've done in Hans Zimmer's Bleeding Fingers company as an in-house composer. And then I have my own website, tuomasnorjanen.com. And then I do have an Instagram. I haven't really updated in a while, but feel free to follow me. I have a couple tracks in Spotify actually. It's for the Chinese video game I worked recently. I highly recommend. I'm actually very proud of that stuff that I did.
Fantastic. So, and then we won't get too far into it, but you'll have some other stuff coming up soon that we can post out into the world
Absolutely.
when it's the appropriate time.
Absolutely. And also extrememusic.com, which is the music library. I have a big catalog there, a lot of different kinds of music. I think I have music on like 94 different albums there.
Oh my gosh. That's prolific.
Yeah. And then APM music also, I think music on like 20 albums. So there's a bunch of music there.
Oh, good. I mean, it's not like you do too much music, so.
Exactly.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right. I'll let you go and get back to making music, and we'll come back at this next time.
Amazing. Looking forward to that.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed my interview with Tuomas, share this episode with a friend and click that subscribe button below to support the podcast and hear more incredible stories of becoming. See y'all next time.